In order, it is 6:05. You are back in the room. This is a meeting of the Economic Development Committee, Wednesday, September 11th. And so first order of business on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes from July 2024. Backside of the agenda. So. Feedback on these minutes. Thank you for putting them together.
Yes, you are welcome.
All right, we have a motion by Andy and a second by Dan to accept the minutes as drafted. All those in favor? Okay, motion passes. Next on our agenda is the Masonic Lodge facade application. What does that look like?
It's all typed up on camera.
Sorry, it's
Here we go. Now, okay. Masonic Lodge facade application.
Basically for an installation of one section of the roof or one pitch,
Not the whole thing. And I'm assuming it's the front facing portion.
the south side. It's a pitch,
North
to
south, okay. Yeah. Well, it is notable that it is visible from the street.
It is.
And that is consistent with the new and updated language in our street TIF. And of course, Masonic Lodge is. What are the economics of this now? For the total.
$15,000 project.
And they're requesting 73?
Yeah.
So there's a
14
7,000.
cents. Yeah.
So it's a 50-50 match.
Yeah, I'm staying because I'm a Mason.
That's fine. We still have a forum if you abstain.
The Masonic Lodge is eligible for this sort of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As a downtown business.
Masonic Lodge of business.
Actually, it's a nonprofit, but
Nonprofit.
it doesn't actually, and even the location doesn't really matter. They're within- so, and they're not a municipal. They're
Yeah.
not a-
They're all organized. How'd that happen?
It's the neuro link that Doug has with the TV. Nice job,
You
Doug.
did it, well done.
Good thing we got you around. Pretty honestly. All right.
What are the guidelines for minute max? I know it's
Up to 12,500,
Okay.
yeah, so a $25,000 project total. Split.
See why we wouldn't approve it.
Questions, concerns?
repairs have been started, I assume, we're just making sure that how we've been approaching other applications. Doesn't seem like it.
I don't think they've started. I think someone might have made a deposit. Just to secure. Looked to me like there was some reference of a deposit.
The work might be done.
Oh, is it done?
Like, it's not completely, there's a corner, I think Mark Burgess is gonna complete it on his own. To get a lift to be able to get to that section.
Well, we've approved. Other proposals.
Yeah, I think we just give the same guidance that we gave the main cabin masters though, which was next project.
Tell us
in advance.
Tell us before you do it.
I think it was a rush because of the time and the contractor, the weather.
Just trying.
Yep. Consistent, we should be consistent. Other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion? What's your motion?
Not to accept it. To deny it, I wanna destroy everything, just like last meeting.
So I hear a motion from Andy to accept, to recommend to the select board that we accept this application. And a second by Garrett. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor? All right, and one abstention. And we will move on to our next topic, which is the Monmouth Museum facade application. Monmouth Museum facade application.
Sounds like they don't have enough money to complete everything that needs to be done, so they're just seeking to have $4,000 job done. They have 2,000 to submit their portion. And then they'll probably seek to finish it next year and maybe apply again. They can apply each year, right?
Right, we can apply each calendar year. And Larry, the reason that this looks like this is because Larry's out of town, and when I contacted him he had submitted the quote for the job, but hadn't submitted the application page, so when I sent it to him, he didn't have a PDF filler, basically, so I said, it's fine, it's the information that the committee needs, so.
Yep.
And he did also contact me because there is only one quote. And although the application requests two quotes, it was just another situation of them contacting several contractors and not being able to get a bid, which is fairly typical at these days. So I told him that, I would, he also wrote to the committee about that, but wanted me to reiterate that they did try and get multiple quotes for the job.
And it is a reputable contractor. Well-known local contractor.
So someone asked about multiple quotes for the one we just approved.
And,
It's good to know for the next time.
Mr.
I'm new,
Consistency.
yeah. It looked like a reasonable one.
All right, other questions, comments?
Motion we accept this facade grant for the Monmouth Museum.
For two,
For two.
they're asking, requesting $2,000.
$2,000. And I hear a second from Andy.
Could I be abstaining on trustee of the museum?
You might. So, yeah, probably a good idea. So we have a motion and from Dan and a second from Andy to accept the recommendation of the select board for a $2,000 50/50 match to the museum for the facade grant. All those in favor? And one abstention. All right, and then next on our agenda is the revolving loan fund discussion.
So, as I'm passing this out, I will give you a little preview. So as I think many of us know, for quite a while, so in our TIP district, we have funds to offer a municipal revolving loan program for businesses in Monmouth to apply for. And typically what this type of funding is it can be a lot of things, but different municipalities structure them differently. So the two that I said, I just passed out to you are two applications. One's from Kennebec Valley Council of Governments for certain municipalities Burnham, Freedom, Palermo, Thorndike, Troy, Unity. Those are the communities that they, oversee that grant for, and then this one here was on Gorham's website, Town of Gorham's website. This is their revolving loan fund program. And then the town of Farmington has had a revolving loan fund program since 1988. Also being a college town, that probably helps with some of the, creative business turnover, but their application is 12 pages long. So I didn't print one out for everyone, but there are a couple applications, just if people are interested in just seeing how different municipalities approach a revolving loan fund program. So at one point, Monmouth had a revolving loan fund program that KV Cog administered, and which is what is happening right now. The town finally received a contract from KV Cog so that they'll be the administrators of the revolving loans that we may grant to local businesses. What I don't have is an application, criteria, any type of template from that original facade, revolving loan fund that Monmouth had administered several years ago. I know it existed because in this pamphlet, there is the ways we can help small businesses. This is from around 2013, so probably a decade ago. It says that the town offers revolving loan funds with loans up to $10,000 for businesses in Monmouth. So I guess what I'm looking for today from you guys is if you have any thoughts, ideas, just kind of a general sense of how you want this program to work. If we want to be targeting particular businesses, if we do or don't want to encourage startups to apply. Some of these tend to go for established businesses because there's a little less risk involved, obviously, as opposed to giving startup funds for business in Monmouth. That said, I think there's a reason why people don't do startup businesses because it's risky, and do we want to be facilitators of business in Monmouth in that way? Also, 10 years ago, the funds offered were up to $10,000. Is that a good number? If a business wanted to buy some equipment or do an expansion that would grow their business, what kind of number should we be looking at in this day and age? And if there's any type of restrictions that this committee may not, types of businesses that may not qualify, maybe controversial businesses or I don't know, there's when you think of the world of business, are there types of businesses that the town may not, it might not be a good look for them to invest in. So just a discussion. I was trying to get people's thoughts.
Where do the funds come? AV Cog or a bank or?
So
Town of Monmouth?
the town of Monmouth. So we have in our TIF, some of the funds that we've been holding include funds to loan to businesses at a pretty low interest rate. Usually in this instance, they may not have check all the boxes for a traditional lender. So then KB cog would be administering the reimbursement of those, or the repayment of those funds.
What do we have for a balance in that allocated?
That's a good question. I mean, we haven't, I don't know that any have taken place since the beginning of the TIF. So,
It's kind of hard to say, yeah, 10,000 is appropriate, but with inflation since 2013, maybe 20,000 would be better, but if we only have 40,000 available. then-
yeah, no, that's a good question. I'll look, but I mean, I feel like we put $100,000 into this or something. I mean, again, it was over the life of the TIF, and the goal is for it to be obviously replenished, for it to be repaid and lent out to other businesses.
What would the interest rates be? I mean, I see something about in the Gorham one, I guess it's prime -1, prime +1. What is prime? Is that just what's set by the Fed or like what?
Yeah, it's based on the
Okay.
current interest rate, yeah.
So it's not like going to a bank and they're gonna look at your, finances and give you a rate based off of your risk
Right,
assessment.
it's just, it's the base determined by the market and changes,
Okay.
month to month.
So it might be like a LIBOR, something.
So, yeah, the equivalent, yeah, whatever they're allowed to do now.
Yeah.
So like right now, it's gonna, what are we at, like 9% or 9.5 or?
For prime interest.
No, it'd probably be like 5.5 + 1, so 6.5, somewhere around there.
Tells you what kind of financial situation I live in.
So. I'm in agreement with Dan's logic in terms of understanding what the intent was originally and sort of adjusting it for the inflation that's happened since. 2013, and maybe we could. Put a time clock on it that says every couple of years we take another look at it to see if that's still a reasonable number.
Sure.
But, going from 10,000 to 20,000, it's in about the same scale for, 10 years ago, $10,000.
Can I just clarify, so this is gonna be administered by Kennewick Valley? So this is,
KB cog, yeah.
so this is for other municipalities, it's what they're using already?
This is what I pulled off the internet. I'll be honest, it's pretty hard to find revolving loan funds that municipalities administer, and I think possibly we're about to find out why that is. I just, that, I don't know how old that application is. I don't know if they still work with that, with those municipalities, because as I said, I mean, Monmouth used to work with KB cog and the contract expired, and, it's taken us this long to get them to sign back on to agree to administer it. So there is some work I'm doing to figure out the interplay between all of the groups, but in terms of starting to think about what we want this to be for the town, I thought it would be good to start the discussion.
The process, I mean, somebody submits an application and it just goes to KV cog and they handle it, or this is like it comes to
It comes to us. We handle the applications.
And
Hello,
we're determining if they're viable and gonna pay us back.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well. Yeah, it does sound a little odd, doesn't it? But it would also be for, a Monmouth business. And so we've probably got a lot more sort of on the ground information about business viability for some local businesses. Some far-flung financial institution would have based on what they see on paper as well.
Would it be possible for somebody from Kennewick Valley cog to meet with us to kind of give us some guidance? Because, I mean, I'm not sure what would come down our way, what they've seen. So it's almost figure that out before we design.
Yeah.
Maybe they could zoom in.
Yeah, we'd get to know what kind of support we actually are gonna get from them in this whole thing. We go down this road.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of a good thing that we haven't received any applications for this sort of thing up until now. It's a little chicken and eggish though, right?
I'm looking-
We're not really prepared for applications and we're not gonna get any.
Well, yeah, kind of on that topic is the one in Gorham. There's a lot of deadlines that would be hard to stick to. Kind of like, we'll get back to you in 1 to 2 days. That's gonna be brought up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think we'd avoid anything like that.
And, you know, the other thing too, to know. I don't know. If this is even at the $20,000 range. Whether this is even,
Now the
you know,
board's.
gonna be a useful tool for,
No, I
for
agree with
those
Steve.
businesses.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, especially I think if you're, gonna,
It's a micro loan, basically.
well, I mean, in the conversation around startups, I mean, like, this sort of loan program is really mostly, I think, gonna benefit a startup as opposed to, I mean, this is the sort of loan program that like starting our farm, like that we be looking to access.
Yeah.
Somebody with an established business, I don't think is gonna be that excited about a $10,000 loan.
Right.
I mean, that's less than a Greenville for me, you know?
Right. But, I mean, you put yourself in the shoes of a hypothetical, maybe we have a local business that wants to. Move into the bank building and needs some money for renovations and. They're, for them, it's a local, it's an expansion and a step up. Maybe this would be helpful.
I think I just was more saying, I think just we'd have to be doing more than $10,000 for it to be meaningful. I mean.
Yeah.
Just like the roof on the Mason's Lodge was more than that,
Right.
I mean, it's.
So, and just for people's information, the revolving loan fund program, and matching grants, because we also have economic development grants, is 360,000 over the 30-year district.
So there's a substantial amount there.
Gorham offers up to 150,000.
That's probably why they're,
Leveraged, so there's gotta be a match of something. Right? I mean, it's like. You go to a commercial bank and they'll say, well, we're willing to do 75. And then somebody comes to us and says, would you guys be willing to do the other 75? Because I need more 50. Which actually might be. Sort of thing that would. Help. Be mutually beneficial, right? I mean, because you put yourself in the shoes of a bank and they're looking at everything on paper and it's all, lots of I's to dot and T's to cross.
Could you put something that they could come back and request additional funds, like after a year, they've proven that they've, made payment consistently with no issues and whatever reason, hardship, whatever, they need to reapply for additional funding, or is it just a one-time?
doesn't have to, I mean, again, we're kind of creating this, which is, if that's something that we want to, consider, then we certainly can, kind of a period of, proving yourself, for lack of a better word, and then with that, which would unlock maybe additional opportunities for funding.
I think 10,000 is too low. I think, to start, 20,000 makes sense, just starting point. Where we only have 300 and change, we probably don't want to say 150 because you're tying up, half of our available
Half of it,
funds.
right.
And then you find out they delinquent on their payments or whatever, and get that whole mess, trying to get them to pay it back. And certainly, 20,000. It's a lot of money, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, and there's still much more available funds.
I kind of like designing that, if we're looking at somebody starting up to where we'd be willing to almost look at it for a low amount, 5 or 10,000. And then next year you could potentially commit. Almost like a couple tiers, kind of like the school run program.
Right.
Mhm.
How does collateral work with these sorts of loan programs? I mean, are we just like being, are they buying, spending it on, or I'm just wondering how that works in like relation to, you know, if somebody wants this, to use this loan as a down payment, you know, to access a bigger loan or.
I don't, is collateral something that they say is as an allowable use for the funding? Some of them had, like they had allowable uses, perhaps, maybe that was.
Personal guarantee, and at least in the case of the Gorham one, there's a personal guarantee. So there's no.
Yes, yeah, and it's the eligible project, they have an eligible projects in the Farmington one, just real property acquisition, capital equipment. Building improvements and renovations, so.
Yeah.
It's,
Just wondering, like, I mean, would we be able to be in the actual term, the subordinate position on a loan, you know, with a lien, like the town hold a lien on whatever people are buying? I mean, like a normal loan, you know, or? Yes, that's the way it would work presumably.
I would hope there's some protection.
Yeah, otherwise people just walk away and don't ever pay us again.
Yeah, well, and I mean, in the Gorham case, if you're using the funds to purchase land, buildings, machinery, equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, those are hard assets
Okay,
that you could put a lien on.
yeah. Because I'm just
In some sort of position.
trying to understand the utility, like if somebody wanted, you know, would this help, could this help somebody who's starting a business to have a down payment to go to a traditional lender then and say, hey, I have 25% from the town of Monmouth, you know, and
Yeah,
like,
that could be, a leverage situation.
I don't know, from, there's like a dairy loan program that the state has that, I know multiple people, including myself, have done that sort of thing where a loan from like Farm Credit and then Fame finances the rest, you know, that's worked well, so.
Yeah.
Wondering like what scenarios is this actually a useful program versus just, you know, I could just go to my bank and get that, you know?
And we would have to specify if we're willing to be in second position.
Right, that's, I guess what I'm getting, yeah.
There's also an origination fee, at least in the case of the Gorham, and there's like a 3% total loan. $50 flat fee.
I feel like I should really know the answer to this question, but I mean, is there on the town website a place that like the facade grants are advertised and this loan program is gonna be I mean, that's just something I keep hearing again and again from people in town. They're just like, well, anything about what's going on in town and, you know, I mean, you start doing programs like this and it's like, well, you have to be in the inside club to know that you can get a loan from town. Just wanna like, you know, be proactive about that sort of attitude that there's, you know.
I heard that today.
Yeah, you
Then I-
know.
Then I
I
pointed
just-
out that we had texted everyone who signed up for texts, that we had advertised everything on like 6 different groups of Facebook things, and we put it on the town website. We had a bunch of public meetings that have YouTube videos. What would you like to see? And the answer was a postcard to every voter.
Still think an email list would be really great.
My neighbor was upset that I didn't reach out, let him know about the 9/11 memorial
Oh, yeah,
reveal last Saturday.
yeah,
Upset. And I just assumed he was on Facebook, but yeah.
yeah, none of them there.
It's the sort of thing that if there were an email newsletter from town.
Everyone has their own choice of communication channels, so I guess.
You have to have an email address to have Facebook, I think. I don't know, maybe you just have to. So, anyway. Just,
The loss of the community advertiser has had an impact.
Huge.
I pointed that out and they were still very upset that they didn't know or that the turnout for the special election was so low.
I would suspect that more people in town utilize email than Facebook. That's an aside. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, this all needs to be publicized, you know.
Yep.
Just the-
Well, at a minimum, I think the transparency requirement would be to get it on the town website with an application.
Right.
And a description of the process and, specifications for how we're going to make the decision
Yeah.
and who makes the decision. And from there, I mean, sometimes people can be self-advocates and they can reach out to the economic development person and say, what do you got? And then you've got something to point them to in terms of that. But in other cases, people are like, well, nobody told me. Well, maybe you didn't ask the right question.
But also prioritize like ease of completion of application too, because if I went to a website and it was this, I'd be like, well, I'm not gonna print this out, and fill it out and type it, you know what I mean? I'd rather just have editable PDFs that you fields and submit. So if we're gonna roll this out, I think we need to do something behind the scenes and actually.
Right. All right, other discussions on the revolving loan fund. Maybe we can put this on our next agenda and ask Katie Cog to zoom in for 5 or 10 minutes. This is not a huge, we have to understand that for KV Cog, this is not a big moneymaker for them in terms of administering all of this. So I wouldn't have high expectations that they're gonna have a tremendous amount of time to spend with us in terms of explaining what they're gonna do.
I'd just like to know if there's other towns doing it through
Yeah.
KV code.
That's a great idea. That's a great question. Like how much experience do you have and what other towns do it and what sort of flow
How many loans?
of loans do they give
Yeah.
out?
Is the origination fee, that's what pays KV cog for their,
Well, they're getting the prime rate, so whatever that is, 5%.
so they're collecting the interest rate, we're just getting the.
The town is paying, but it's an hourly fee, so the interest rate, again, this can be set up however we want it to be. There could be a very low interest rate, there could be the market interest rate that the town collects. Those are all
The
questions.
town collects the interest.
Yeah, how is KV cog compensated?
Yeah, we
for
earn
being
interest.
involved?
I believe the contract, I thought, said that they charge hourly for the
Oh.
administration of the
Okay,
grant.
so that's all.
So
Okay.
if we don't use them, we don't pay.
Mhm.
And when we call them to a meeting, they're gonna charge us an hourly rate.
Gotcha.
Which is fine, which is what the TIF pays for.
Yep.
To do
But
that.
we need to
Had that
understand.
discussion at our select board meeting.
Yeah.
It was $100 an hour, and then if we needed further legal services beyond what they could provide, it was $150 an hour, $140 an hour or something for a regular lawyer to prepare stuff and
Cheap for a lawyer,
we can bill for what we need them for.
but we'll need, yeah. Okay, well, I'm imagining we'll probably spend the next 2 or 3 meetings sort of getting our arms around how we want this to crystallize.
Right.
And then we'll, after those meetings, we'll make a recommendation on the select board and go from there. Any other discussion on this matter? All right, you missed the fireworks on the Masons.
Pretty rough, I bet.
It was pretty controversial.
Did you have enough?
You have to review those
Is there two of them?
videos. Yeah, we get the museum one too. They both were approved. Other business. Anyone got some other business? Dan?
I apologize if I missed a previous meeting, but the 2 developments going on in town, residential developments, has that been brought forward in front of us?
No.
No.
The one, well, I'm not sure which two you're
Well,
referring
we'll
to.
start with Piper's property that just recently sold. There's a 63 house in development for, I guess it's being marketed for people over the age of 55, for affordable housing.
So the developers called me 3 or 4 months ago, as they were, purchasing the property or as they were reviewing the property. And I talked to them about the options they had for the type of development that they were talking about at the time. I think they are working through main housing. If they're doing this, the 55+, I would imagine if it's any type of affordable, they're going through main housing for funding, but no one has asked us for a credit enhancement agreement for that property. And if they're already underway,
Sounds like they are, and they're getting ready to go in front of the planning board. Plans, because they've already reached out to the police chief and myself, asking for input on the plans. And the plans is just, the road and access issues.
yeah, so what I had explained to them is, that because it was a housing development, if they wanted a credit enhancement agreement, it would need to be an affordable housing TIF district. And as we all know, our TIF district is an economic development TIF district. At that time, they didn't necessarily know where they were going, so if that's the direction they're going in, I still haven't heard anything from them.
And they don't
About
really
that.
qualify for the existing TIF district
Right.
language. But, I mean, if they've got time, I mean, it's possible that we could redefine the TIF district for that particular parcel or other parcels in that neighborhood.
It sounds like they're just moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for whatever reason, I kind of explained to him, like, this is the type of development you would have to, you could do apartments, that were market rate, that, I mean, that would qualify for an economic development. And I said, let me know where you are going with it, and I've never heard back from them again, so. There's that.
I was just curious because I didn't see anything in our agenda. And then the other one
So
was.
when you looked at the plans, sorry, before we move on, when you looked at the plans, were these apartment buildings or are they like duplex tree?
These are single family homes that are 2 bedrooms, no garage.
So like condos?
It's almost like a condo.
Yeah. Yeah, individual condos.
Is it affordable? Is it affordable or market rate?
I don't know.
Because again, when I was talking to him, I said, you need it to be affordable housing to do this program at Main State Housing and this, and he did not seem swayed by what I was saying would get him funding. So I don't know what they have for their own backing, but they seem to have a.
Where's this property? Sorry.
1063 Main Street.
That's the one down here.
Is
Yeah.
it
132.
in the TIF zone?
It is.
It is in the Main Street TIF zone, which does not really cover housing unless it's an apartment building.
And it's not apartments from what we're
They're
gathering.
calling them single family residential house lots
So
in a 55-year-old minimum age requirement community. The dwellings will also have 2-bedroom units and a preliminary subdivision plan is provided for your use. 2 attachments. The planning board has asked that I obtain a letter from you in regards for any concerns you have with this proposed project. 32-acre lot. And it's in a zoning district as shown on the town zoning map. Any zoning district. Anyway, 63, yeah.
So single family homes that they're going to be selling that are in a 55
That's what it sounds
plus,
like.
yeah. So that would be hard for us to,
Fit into the box, unless we change the box.
yeah.
I was gonna see all the yellow boxes, it's the house lots, or the houses, I should say,
So they're like all in half-acre lots.
yeah.
That's a lot better than a big boxy apartment building.
They got hammerhead turnarounds at the 2 roads going in. There'll be 2 roads going in, one's by the hydrant. No, I think it's great.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking at you because you're over 55, but.
Well, I think that's exactly the kind of thing that people are looking for.
Yeah,
In that, someone who's feeling the impact of aging in place in a big old house that is underutilized and wants to downsize.
and I think it's good for our tax base. So the other one was on the main and,
That's the.
Several
subdivision
houses,
that's already there.
subdivision.
Yeah, yeah, so that's, I think his last name is Kroll. I just emailed him a
Yes.
couple of weeks ago, because he did come to us and met with, Justin and I, and we basically said, let us know how we can help. He's waiting for 2 applications to come out from Main State Housing. Those usually require, they're scored on points. And so, one way to get points is to have, buy-in from the town or support from the town, which is usually shown in the way of a credit enhancement agreement. He's looking at apartments, I believe, and then single
I think
family.
he's doing what the rumor I heard was he was doing, several housing development with the option of a couple of apartment buildings
Yeah.
or something like that.
Right, and so in our current 202 TIF, the apartment buildings would be fine. It would be the houses, if he needed that type of help, that we might need to carve out into a housing TIF, for affordable housing, if he needed those points for Main State Housing to get on. And again, in those instances, it's not necessarily the tax reimbursement that is helpful to him, because on an apartment building or on a house, 50% of the taxes isn't going to make your project go, but it's the points that he gets to leverage the money from Main State Housing, which is
Sort of like
important.
local participation or
Yeah.
other matching sources.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So it's kind of the same deal with this loan thing where, you know, it might be the seed money that they need to go after a larger fund.
we have been communicating with him. I said, let me know how we can help. You know, we certainly would want that to happen, in Monmouth. And so, he's just waiting for those applications.
We don't have anything to do with the development that's gonna be on 135 by Wilford Frost property, or the one they're talking about on Ward Road in North Monmouth.
Haven't heard about the Ward Road one. Tell me more.
Well, you're talking about the Jellystone expansion?
No,
No.
this is Ward Road is a turn off, and there's a big area there, field and so forth.
Oh, I didn't know there was something going on.
And not sure how much of it is in Monmouth, but they've approached obviously watershed for Wendy Dennis has been there and examined the property and so forth. She thought it was a good plan. It'll be protecting the watershed well.
I also heard a rumor, woman called me about a solar array on Berry Road. Have you heard anything about this? She made it sound like it was a small project, so I don't know who the property owner is, and if it's in a field or a business. The only business is Stevens. But I don't know if they have any land there to put an array in. I was thinking Pinkham's Field, which is pretty big, but yeah, I'm just curious.
Other business. Any news on the project in South Monmouth for a solar? In your backyard, the guys who own our barn?
Yeah, the developer there has come back to the planning board with a revised plan, with a slightly smaller footprint, because they're going with a different type of panel that's more efficient. But they still haven't started construction. I believe they have until February or March, because they did get their application extended. And if that one falls through, then behind the former AD Electric facility, one will be able to go in. I mean, they're still trying to get it done, but because we put a density provision in the solar ordinance, they preclude one another.
Right.
Yep.
And is the one behind the barn, does it have the appropriate permits?
I don't know, I know that they are continuing to come back to the planning board. I'm not on the planning board, but I do ask
Exactly.
Steve
Yeah.
every time I see him. But yeah, I think basically that project could move forward if the other one doesn't. Because I think the company is frustrated that somebody abdicated to put a density provision in that solar ordinance, so.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
isn't that a shame? By the way, I have to say, I went to Litchfield the other day and I was at the Litchfield Fair. And the people in Litchfield just put in a prohibition or a temporary hold on all solar development. And they were asking me like, what's Monmouth doing? And I go, well, about 2 years ago, we came up with this modification to our existing solar and it includes this density provision so that we're not, we're not saying no, but you can't be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And also we put in some protections of agricultural land as well.
Yeah, I mean, those honestly are less effective because developers, they're not mandates and developers can just say, well, we can't avoid the high values.
Right.
So we're just built on top of them, which is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sort of nudges them in the right direction.
Honestly, between the density provision and the fact that we include 200-foot setbacks, those are the two things that have reduced the amount of town that is
Right.
available
Right.
for the solar development and hopefully.
So anyway,
reduce the
they're-
impacts on neighbors.
They're kind of wrestling with that over in Litchfield right now, because apparently they've got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. People are clamoring to do something somewhere, and they were very interested to find out the ins and outs of our ordinance and how we had sort of managed to thread the needle with that. Other business.
I think the only other thing was maybe mention about the trails, because that ties in with TIF stuff, right?
Yes, it does. So thank you for the reminder, meeting of the Trails Committee. Most recently, Garrett, you want to tell us? Garrett's the secretary of the Trails Committee.
Yeah, so the Trails Committee was started to kind of, as in response to a town survey, to kind of add walking trails around town, kind of connect trails that we have. So what the Trails Committee has decided to do is kind of talk to an outfit that does an analysis on the town. We've identified a trail on RSU2 property, I think it's the old cross country. So we're having a group come out to kind of evaluate the trail to see if it's viable, and then look to apply for state grants. But as part of the initial assessment, there may be something coming here to offset the cost of that assessment.
Something in the maybe low five figures.
5,000 to 6,000, it looked like,
Yeah, okay,
so.
$5,000 or $6,000. It might be a request that the Trails Committee would make of this committee to make a recommendation to the select board. Just because we're suggesting the use of TIF funds that were set aside for the purpose of trail.
I heard something at a department head meeting this week about Compton Hall, of that trail,
Yep.
half mile,
Yep,
half mile.
yeah, basically a U-shaped trail behind Compton Hall.
Just kind of threw it out, how cool would it be to have almost like a freedom trail, like you see in Boston, and you connect the dots downtown, and maybe you park at the beach and you walk down, to the museum properties and
Yeah.
then walk up to Compton and you duck into the woods and then come back out and then, somewhere's up, Academy Road and to the RSU property and wherever else it goes. But have signage and,
Ultimately,
Some theme
that's
that
the,
connects it all
is that what you
together.
guys are
that's the
thinking?
plan, and that's why this group's coming in, just so we can see what's viable.
Yeah.
So he's gonna walk some trails in town that comes in also on his list.
So
Is there a question on will be on the ballot, November 5th? Having to do with, development of trails through,
Yeah, through the state of Maine, there's a large, referendum.
grant or
Yeah,
something.
grant.
yeah, so there's a bond question on this year's ballot, $30 million bond question. That would create a fund to do things like what we are suggesting might be done. So this request of $5,000 or $6,000 is sort of seed money to get that ball rolling and be shovel ready. If that bond passes and that money becomes available, then we would be right there with a proposal to say, okay, here's how this would work for the town of Monmouth.
There are other programs too, and the other programs with the state would offset the cost of this assessment. So it's more of just 6 to 9 months.
And the assessment is just specifically on these two projects, or it's looking at the whole town?
Yeah, so he'll do some GIS analysis of the whole town, to kind of target areas. And also, we've identified some cross-country ski trails that he might walk. We've been in touch with the Snowmobile Club too, to see if there's any interest, but it's like a large area initially.
And so the big investment here is because we're anticipating this would get used more frequently just because of the proximity to the school and because there's lots of parking in this part of town. We're thinking a much larger capital investment is probably more appropriate here than say some far-flung snowmobile trail that, is off in the corner of the town somewhere. But nonetheless, you need to look at it as an entire system, right? Can I get from point A to point B, and what are the points A and B that we need to actually, people really want to connect. And that's actually one other thing that we're talking about. I'm hoping we'll take a look at a draft survey that we could circulate to voters in November and put online and potentially circulate to kids at school to help us kind of sift through what are the points A and points B that you want to connect, right? Like if you had a trail, what would you want to do on it and where would that trail be? Including things like free stuff, which is, do we want to think about allowing golf carts on public ways as a potential backbone for some other trails? And what are people's tolerance for that?
Went over to Gorham, where we did, to drive up Mount Washington. And there were people with the ATVs riding around the roads.
We
It seems
talked about
like-
that, we had talked about that in this committee, looking at what ordinances would need to be in place for ATV to be used more freely around Monmouth.
Yeah, because we don't want to overdo it. There's a lot of things you could do wrong there. But limited use and safe use and use that actually is helpful to people maybe with mobility concerns who want to be outside still. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the timeline on this study that?
So they'll come out in the next month or so. They would probably have a report to us by December or January. And then the grants that we have to apply for are June 2025.
I was just wondering if there's any, I'm on the comp plan committee, I was wondering if there's any way to maybe. If there's anything from that, if there's an overview of the town talking about trails, including in the comp plan, some updated.
Well, that's why we sent Dave to the comp meeting
Yep.
last week.
Right, yeah, he was there, yes.
And I think he might have taken your consultant aside and said, hey, do you want to come to the next trails meeting? Because we might have some information that might be helpful to be included.
I think we told him that he needed to just come back to all of our meetings. So,
Okay, whatever.
I think that's actually what happened.
Well, if that works for him, that works for me. All right, any other business? Hearing none, then we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is adjourning.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? All right, it's 7 o'clock, right on time.
That's how you get a meeting.
Yep.
Oh.
Let me know the date on the.
Thank you, everyone.